sister and brother grew up in the States. And then this young man had done this horrible, horrible act. So this was on television for about 2 weeks. Every day they were following the story. And what they did, they started doing some investigating on this boy's life and what would cause him to do this horrible crime. And what they found out was, as a little boy growing up, he had been the victim of bullying. One of the boys that he grew up with even used the word target. He was a perfect target to make fun of. He said he was always the kid by himself carrying this big trombone case. He looked different than everybody else. He was an easy target to make fun of. So can you understand, as a child growing up like that, how in his heart he became bitter and resentful? And those things started building up and building up and building up in him. Now, yes, he is responsible for what he did, and he's accountable for what he did and that he allowed it to go to that extent in his life. But I believe every person that made fun of him is somewhat accountable as well for the deaths of those people at Virginia Tech that day. The Lord really went into my heart with that. And he said, you've been like that with people. You have treated people not of value and in an unkind way, either in word or actions. You've done that. And yes, I have. I was guilty of that. And he said, but you can make a change. And he gave me a goal. The Lord gave me a goal. He said, every single day, every person that you come eye to eye with, make them feel like they are a person of value. I thought, that is a good goal. I'm really going to do that. That young man that committed that crime, that morning, he went to the post office and mailed a letter telling what he was doing. And of course it was received several days after all of this had happened. And I got to thinking, I wonder if the person at the post office had just said one kind thing to him, would have that changed the acts of that day at all? If he had felt like a person of value that day. So I just became determined that to do what the Lord said, and every person that I came in contact with, I was going to treat them by value. Now, that seemed to me that would take a lot of time. And I kind of went to the Lord with that. I said, I don't have time to talk to everybody. I could, but I don't have time to do that. He said, no, that's not what I'm talking about. He said, I'm talking about smiling at people. I'm talking about let them go in the door first. Let them have the better parking place. Little things like that. When he started suggesting that, I thought, this is a very doable thing. So I have been doing that. I love it. I have been smiling at people. If you hear of a crazy lady in Sedalia holding doors at Walmart smiling, that is me. Because I have been doing it and it is so much fun. And people smile back. That's so neat. Or when I say to them, let me hold the door for you, they say, thank you. I don't know what they're going through in their life. Maybe that morning they felt like nobody cared about them. And they thought, maybe the world would be better off without me. I don't know. You don't know. But can't we just show each other these acts of kindness? And it causes us to get our eyes off of ourselves in order to do that. You don't have to clap. Next lady is our 1940s lady. I love her. She's one of my favorite fashion divas. I call her. I'm going to put this jacket on her, and you won't get to see the back of it, but look at all these great pleats that it has in the back. And the little skirt that goes around the bottom, that's called a peplum skirt, very popular in the 1940s. The thing that influenced women's fashion in the 1940s was actually World War II and the military uniform. A lot of their clothes look quite military. They have broad shoulder pads in them. They're fitted at the waist just like a military jacket. A lot of straight skirts because fabric was being rationed during the war years. Cute little wool purse with just a one-handle strap. You see a lot of that in the 40s. Great 40s hat. I love to wear 40s hats because they are just over the top. To some of you, that would be a large hat. To me, that is medium size. Great shoes in the 1940s, the ankle strap shoes, the big chunky heel, a little bit of platform in them. They're remaking a lot of 40s style shoes today, and they're a lot of fun to wear. So that's our 1940s gal. In the 1940s, we were in World War II. I read a statistic that said 6 million women went to work in factories during World War II. 6 million. Now talk about being out of their comfort zone. Whoa. These were women that by choice wanted to be home, being a homemaker, taking care of the children. Many of them didn't want to go outside the home to work, and all of a sudden they are in factories making ammunition and parachutes and guns and uniforms, doing all of this stuff during World War II. And I've read that because they were so willing to do that, our country was somewhat healthy when the men returned home because the women did what had to be done. They saw the need and they did it. They were fighters. These women were as much fighters as the men were. So we're going to talk a little bit about being a fighter. Now when I was preparing this card, I thought, now what do I want my opposite word to be from fighter? I was talking it over with my husband, and he said, well, you could put like a loser. And I don't like the word loser at all. As a teacher and a mother, that word is not in my vocabulary. You are a loser. In my opinion, there is only one loser, and that is a person who dies a sinner. That is the only time you are a loser. So I didn't like that one. And then he said, well, what about a quitter? I said, well, yeah, that's pretty good. But then God gave me one. You are not going to like it. A whiner. A whiner. Lord, I'm not a whiner. Yes, you are. You are a whiner. Thank goodness these women weren't whiners. They just put on their overalls and went to work. They were fighters. And we need to have that spirit of being a fighter. When we show up, somebody ought to say, da-da-da-da, underdog is here, because they know we have a fighting spirit about us. But it's real easy to get caught in the whining, because that is just so human to get caught there. It's just so human to complain and say why we don't want to do that or why we can't do that. So we need to trade out the whining and have a fighting spirit. Let's read James 1, verses 2 through 4, and then 12. Consider it all joy, my brethren, when you encounter various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance. And let endurance have its perfect result, so that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. And then verse 12 says, blessed is a man who perseveres under trial, for once he has been approved, he will receive the crown of life which the Lord has promised to those who love him. Are we going to be fighters? Amen. Then we move on to the 1950s. Now, there was a time many years ago, it was over, I don't know how long I've been wearing vintage clothes. I've been wearing them a long, long time. But before I started wearing vintage clothes, I want to show you what I look like. I wish there were people here that knew me from this time because they would verify. This is exactly what I wore. I wore big, baggy overalls. They had to be very baggy. I wore a flannel shirt, and then I always wore a red bandana headscarf on my hair like this. That way you didn't ever have to comb your hair. You never even had to wash your hair. You know. And this is how I looked all the time, except I didn't wear that to church, but I wore it every other day. That is what I looked like before I started wearing vintage clothing. Now I want to show you what I look like since I've been wearing vintage clothing. Which is cute. We always have to have our little matching necklace and earrings. Very 50s. I love things that are matchy-matchy. Who would not want to wear these cute little pink heels? This is me now. Yes, sirree. Now I want to, this is just a little fashion tip. I have on this crinoline petticoat. It's really great, nice and full and fluffy. And I'm going to encourage all of you, before your lifetime ends, to wear a crinoline in public. It is fabulous. It hides your hips, your thighs, everything else. It's really great. But you really feel quite feminine in this. And that's what kind of led me on a journey with vintage clothes. When I put the clothes on and I started wearing them, something happened in me. I felt very femininely and womanly in them, and I had not had those feelings before that time. Now, the reason that I hadn't is one of the areas that I had to personally deal with was that area of religion. I grew up in a church that had a lot of don'ts in it. And they didn't celebrate women as God created them to be. And so they would, don't wear makeup, don't wear jewelry, don't get your ears pierced, don't wear fingernail polish, don't do all of this stuff. And I'm sure everyone responds to that in a different way. But the way that I responded to it was, it just made me feel like my womanhood was something I wasn't